There's a harbor in my heart where you used to fix your sails. There was no berthing fee to pay, and there were no documents to sign. You used to just relax before figuring out what you needed to do, for the ocean is vast, yet wherever you went, the currents always lead back to you.
How would you like me to introduce you, James?
Oh, thank you, Paul. Well, firstly, nice to meet you, mate. I'm sorry we haven't had a chance to talk kind of previous to this. It's quite on the spot, isn't it? I guess maybe you've been able to read one or two of my emails. I don't know.
I have. You told me you were into events organizing, and even were involved with some big festivals.
Yes, man. No, I've been very, very lucky. I took an unusual path. I wasn't so inclined to invest into the society that I saw after going to the top private school in the country and having the main part in the school musical and doing a few years in a boutique kind of ad agency in Sydney. I ran away, man. I ran away, and I've been around the world about 15 times ever since. I've got a few little communities I'm involved in different places, such as in Brazil. And yeah, I've ended up working in festivals in pretty serious production roles for, big events like Glastonbury, and running transport and artist liaison for Secret Garden Party and Wilderness. Amazing. I've had an incredible time, man. Had an incredible time. But, I'm the textbook scapegoat in the family, and I've been reluctant to go public about anything. And this is certainly not the way that I envisaged it. I've got a huge amount of stories and information and videos and photos and things to share and to help a lot of people, but I've managed to remain pretty under the radar because I've been a bit afraid of stepping into public, because on the internet that exists forever, and I'm trying to hold on to my sovereignty a little bit. I'm trying to build a community in the north of Brazil. I've got a little farm up there. You could check out relaxinbrazil.com. I'm hoping to do some subdivisions and build a bit of a community there with my friends that I've built around the world over the last 30 years of traveling around. So
have you heard of Simon? Have you heard of Simon Godek?
Is that Simon Black?
No. There is a Dr. Simon Godek who's on X. And he lives in the Brazilian rainforest.
Simon Godek. Okay.
Yeah, it's Godekel on X. So in terms of introducing you, event organizer, travels the world, organized in all these processes, but what are the main...
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've kind of got back to Australia in October, for Dad's 100th birthday.
Yeah, I said that to Michael.
Yeah, and but my oldest brother's an eye surgeon, practically lives next door to the Prime Minister. And my other brother's a very big, famous developer here, makes more than the eye surgeon. And unfortunately, during COVID, man, they threw me out of the family for not getting an injection, even though I had 2 formal exemptions because I had psoriasis for 30 years.
That's a common story. So, thrown out of the family. What's not common is all your travel and stuff. And when you came back for the 100th birthday party, had the AVO and all that stuff had already happened? Or?
No. This is the second time my brothers have. Sorry.
Carry on.
I was just saying, no, man. It was. I came back. My brothers had said that already to my dad that they wouldn't go to it if I was there. They've been hiding for 5 years. unfortunately, yeah, the injection that they insist that I had and threw me out of Christmas for not having, writing and saying that they didn't socialize with the unvaccinated, meant that he misled the court, my brother, and got me on a fake AVO, which I was found to be innocent of and never claimed any guilt of. I'm still trying to get the transcript for that. And there's basically been a cover-up ever since. It's like the classic David and Goliath. But the problem with it now is that mum and dad are screaming out. Dad's not allowed to speak. He says he'd be in trouble if he called me. Last night, mum's rung and said she's lost the will to live. She finds the whole thing disgusting, right? And I'm not allowed to see them without going to the district court, which can take months. I've already been 4 times to the Manly court, haven't been allowed to speak. So, you know, what can you do? The legal aid lawyer provided to me wouldn't hand up my evidence. The police have mishandled terribly, you know, and I don't know whether we're still allowed to tell the truth about these things or not, mate, to be honest. I've tried every office in the land for help with this for like 5 years, and this is all just the avoidance of a conversation. Because then, of course, unfortunately, man, my brother gave dad that injection and mum. And dad had a stroke.
I remember. Yeah.
Dad had a stroke 2 weeks. He gets taken off the market internationally for causing those problems. And my brother, who'd been bragging about his decades of medical experience, you know, hasn't been able to bring himself to apologize. And, you know, they wrote and said that I was mentally gone to my parents so that they could take control of the estate, you know, the executorship, power of attorney and guardianship, by saying that I was mentally gone. And they're still saying that I'm mentally gone, which is ironic because they've blocked all of the medical advice. And dad about 100 times. Anyway.
Well, you know, it appears a lot of us are mentally gone. Some realize that they're mentally gone and some don't.
It's a crazy world, man. That's for sure.
It really is. And of course, the world's in an incredible spot at the moment, you know, in the midst of all this, you know, I'm tracking all these massive changes. He's back.
Sorry, guys.
No worries,
You know
mate.
what? Before we start, it'll just go. We've got a Starlink, we've got internet, and we've got another 3 internets, and all they go, no internet. I've got another interview after this one.
Are you serious?
I'm going to tell you, after 5 years of doing this, I believe this is a spiritual war, and part of it is the gremlins with these things. Because literally, I've been on the internet for the last hour getting ready for this. There hasn't been one scarica thing. As soon as I press go live, it's like, you know. Yeah,
do you know what? It is a spiritual war. And that might tell us that we're onto something here, but that I'm hopeful that this story, you guys, is going to be enough to kind of show it so clearly, you know.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start again, and we'll just say, I'll just put you out. I'll get Paul to do a quick intro of you, and then we'll bring you in. We'll start, and I'll put this together, and I'll cut this bit out. So I'll see you in a bit. 1, 2, 3, action. Okay, Paul, why don't you introduce our next guest before the internet cuts us off again?
James is one of our tribe in that he saw the dangers of the COVID jabs. I won't call them a vaccine, and tried to protect his parents. And you know, as has happened often in our tribe, the families have split apart, and it's quite a tale. It's quite a tale of it ended up with him coming back to Australia for his dad's 100th birthday party, and they'd gone and done the party without him.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's tell that story.
Let's get him on, and you know, you see, he's got quite a story to tell. Let's bring him on.
All right, let's do it. Dear brother James, welcome to the cafe. Finally, there's and let's
such
dig
a privilege.
Right in.
Thank you so much.
No, let's dig right in. So, you're an event organizer. You go around the world setting up major events, I hear, which is, and that's a
Well,
incredible story. Separate from
I don't know. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but yeah, I have been very fortunate. Bit of a stretch. I wouldn't say that I set them up. You know, I have been involved very fortunately in some extraordinary events and things around the world. I took very different options, you know, from quite a young age after university and kind of a top school and, you know, all the conservative office work for a couple of years. I ran away, man. I didn't want to invest particularly into what I was seeing here and what I saw coming. And went and my goal was to meet everybody in the world when I was 21. You know, I was so naive. And I really have tried. You know, I've been around many times, probably 85 countries or something. And, you know, I've got kind of friends and communities all over the place. And look, I ended up working in production for some of the most amazing events. I've had the most extraordinary, ridiculous experiences you wouldn't believe. Hasn't all been easy, I can assure you. Some of it's been incredibly tough. I was living quite tough last year, you know, but backstage at Glastonbury and looking after famous people, meeting everybody, met the Queen at the Chelsea Flower Show, you know, traveled all over the world, and just it's been absolutely ridiculous. And look, I'm 54, going a bit bald, but I'm convinced I don't look a day over 53 and a half. But this is not about me. This is actually a really crazy, extraordinary and urgent situation. You know, my dad's a 100-year-old war vet. He's a bloody legend. He's done everything for this country, worked for the public service, you know, running teams and architects, building all of our universities and, you know, post offices. And he was in the Air Force, and he took planes over, I think, to Papua New Guinea to be used against the Japs in World War II. He was a bit young, but he got to fly those extraordinary machines, and then he got court-martialed for taking out some power lines. Do you know what I mean? Having too much fun and riding low and fast through the valleys. I mean, what a bloody legend, you know. He was a brilliant swimmer, given his time and his life to his family, doing everything he can. He's had very little appreciation. He should be given a bloody honour of Australia as far as I'm concerned, you know. But now, I don't know about you. Yeah, he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing as well. Yeah. And he's helping people out on the bowls course who are 25 years younger than him. All of his mates have died years ago, you know. But look, the main thing is, guy, at the end of the day, I mean, I could talk about this all night, and I've written a million scripts and emails to every office in the country trying to get this resolved for over 5 years, begging them to help this family deal with, firstly, old trauma.
Back. What's the actual problem? What are you trying to sort out? What's the actual problem we're trying to sort out?
Well, you know, I haven't been allowed to see my parents since October and November, respectively. No shit. Haven't been allowed to talk to them. And it's just absolutely horrendous.
An AVO order out on you or something?
Yeah, on an AVO order. So as I said, I came back for Dad's 100th birthday, and my brothers had already said that if I was going to be there, they weren't going to come. Now, I've got to be careful what I say, because I'm now on a 2-year good behaviour bond. The last thing I want to do is frighten them. But, you know, I want to help them. And I'm hoping that if we can speak the truth finally, then we might be able to do that. And it's now incredibly urgent. I've had my mum call me desperately last night when I'm not allowed to speak with her and say, I'm losing the will to live, James. This is disgusting. I'm not allowed, you know, apparently I'm not allowed to talk with you. Dad says he's not allowed to talk with you. There's a court order. When in fact, they're supposed to be told that if they want to talk with me, they're meant to be helped to do that. But because this has all been set up for so long and it's been so wrong for so long, I think that now the withdrawal from everything at this point is very hard. So if I can be a bit more clear, I got a text from my cousin when I was with my dad on my birthday on the 9th of October, and it said, oh, we already had your dad's family 100th in order to avoid you and your agenda, which we've heard ad infinitum, we don't agree with, and we're not going to talk about anymore. And I was like, oh, you mean when I got thrown out of the family for not having an injection, because that injection wouldn't work for Dad unless I had it, although you say it was effective, and the kids also had to have it for the same reason, that wouldn't work for Grandma unless they'd had her medicine. And I'm mental, and I try and bring the family together and come to Christmas, and Nick says we don't socialise with the unvaccinated and attacks me at the door 2 weeks before Mum has said we won't go without you. He won't go to his place. I want my family together. I'm like, can we sit down and talk? I've gone to every office in the land for the last 5 years. I took Dad to his GP, got a referral to a psychologist, went to a psychologist. They said, oh, you've got to go to the psychologist, James. It's your problem. You're the one. So I went to a psychologist. She was one of the best in the country. She told Martin to listen to me. She tried to get him on a call. He just talked about my OVO and police record, which they'd set up for my turning up to Christmas. They sent me to court, misled the court. I told the court that. The court was 8 or 9 months behind because of COVID. I said, could we get a show trial, please? She said, can you just do a deal with the police prosecutor out the back? This was in 2021, Christmas, right? I went and spoke to him. I told him the story. He said to me, mate, I'm really sorry. I hear this all the time. He rang Nick from the back of the court and said, Nick, will you turn up and talk? Nick said, I'll think about it. Never did, never has. And, you know, what we saw, of course, and you know, I've worked in strategy and building businesses and online and in communications and met millions of people all over the world all of the last 30 years, right? I'm sorry for this light. Beautiful day, isn't it? And at the end of the day, since COVID, haven't been able to get these critical conversations. Just can't get them.
Yeah.
So what happens? You know, I go to Christmas, I get sent to court. I say I'm not guilty. The guy tries to call Nick from out the back. Nothing happens. I agree to stay away from Nick's house for a year. Then my brothers start telling everybody that I'm guilty of an AVO, you know, and I've got a police record and I'm dangerous, you know, and I'm a conspiracy theorist and I'm mental and every other name in the book, by the way, every other name. And I say, can we sit down and talk? And they go, no, you're mental. We can't. And so then what happens? Then they give Dad the injection at like 95 or whatever. 2 weeks later, Dad has a stroke at precisely the average time for AstraZeneca to have caused those issues. This is after my brother's been bragging about his decades of medical experience, right? And what an idiot I am. And they've written to Dad and said I'm mentally gone and had him sign me out of the executorship, power of attorney and guardian that he distinctly wanted me in. And what's happening now? Well, just a couple of months ago, an old family friend that had met Dad a couple of times went to see Dad off his own accord, having heard the story. And Dad said to me, I don't like the police action. We need mediation. I'm not afraid of James. And yet, and James is sound of mind and body. And yet, you know, he says, I've got no voice. Nick won't listen to me. He's too hard. He says all of these things in a JP sworn statement, which is sent to people like the General Counsel of the nursing home and to the ADC, the Aging Disability Board people. It's gone to everybody. I've tried ministers for years. I've written to everybody for 5 years. Got hundreds of emails, hundreds of calls, begged just for us to sit down and have this conversation. But this conversation is being avoided and has been avoided at all costs. And now my mum's screaming, saying she's losing the will to live. And why can't I go around there? And why haven't I been around there to see them? And your dad is dying, James. He's going to die any day. And I'm not allowed to see them. And I've been to court 4 times, to the Manly Court. I've barely been allowed to be heard.
So
my evidence is not being handed up, right? The truth of the story that I've been trying to have told for 5 years is not been allowed in the local court system. So I've had to apply for a hearing in the district court, and Mum's saying we're not going to live that long, right? That is a couple of months until that's even heard, and all we need is for us to come together and hug, and look, I'm not completely innocent. I've reacted over the years, and finally got so exasperated, you can imagine, from that text from my cousin on my birthday telling me they've already had Dad's 100th birthday. And Dad said, what are you going to do? You're going to beat them up. And I said, and I feel like it, Dad. They fucking will deserve it, mate. They've cut me out of your 100th birthday. And that was enough for him to be inspired, for whatever reason, to call the police and say that he was slightly worried about my threat of following through and beating up my brothers. After all of this, that was enough for the police to then come and interview him, where he repeats back propaganda about me that they didn't fact check. He said there'd been a previous AVO out against me to protect him. There never had been. And then what do the police do? They don't check his story. They don't ring me. They don't realize that the night before I was at their very same police station reporting to them the manipulation of my father, because I'd gone to see him on my birthday. I'd only seen him once in a year and a half. And on that day, he starts feeding back these lines that have come out of my brother's mouths, which he's been doing for years. And he starts saying to me, because he knows he's got to warm up to saying that they've already had his family birthday without me, right? And he's saying things like, oh, you're trying to take over the family, James. And I'm like, Dad, I'm not. I'm trying to get a conversation so we can resolve things. And actually, it's my brothers that have taken over the family, right? And ever since, I've just been trying to get this conversation that hasn't been allowed. And so they're still calling me crazy. And it's got really absolutely ridiculous because, you know, that statement with the independent witness just a couple of months ago where Dad says, I've got no voice, right? He agrees that we need mediation. He says he doesn't like the police action. He's surprised to hear that the AVO covers him and Mum. He thought it was put in place to shield my brothers. He says, I'm no threat to him. I never have been. I've never been in a fight in my life. And yet the Manly Court determines that I had intent to beat up my brothers. I've never, in 85 countries, I've never been in a fight in my life, right? I love people. I wanted to meet everybody. I want to help everybody. I'm involved in communities, you know, because I think it's politically inconvenient. And because my brothers are very senior people in society. But the end result is that instead of my parents getting their dying wish for conversation resolution, they're being silenced. My mum's screaming at me saying, I never said it to anybody that I didn't want to see you. She's never said that in her life. I've got the recording of my last meeting with her on the 29th of November. A few days later, the court was told that she didn't want to see me. That was for the first time in my life. Later, she said they said, oh, no, she can't make decisions because she's got dementia. So all that's happening now is that when the side of the story suits the agenda, which is my brother's, you know, hidden agenda, really, and perhaps the other issue that I've got is that I've spoken to many, many lawyers, and a few of them, the most honest ones, have said to me, the courts won't look at anything COVID related. They've determined the whole thing was voluntary. And they just won't do it, James. We've tried and tried. So if I even mention the fact that this was really caused by, I've lost my family to actually misinformation and propaganda on the TV by the media and supported by some of our journalists and commentators and ministers, right? And we're still not allowed to have this conversation. And I've been trying, and it's just being blocked at any cost. And now the truth is going to die with my parents because, you know, new people come and look at it, go and talk to Dad, say, we've spoken to your dad. He's got his own voice. He's made very clear what he wants, you know. And I'm like, you do realize that what he says is exactly the words that Martin was using, threatening my lawyer away 2 weeks ago, and which was reconfirmed by another friend who, after Dad said he's got no voice and he doesn't like what's going on and we need mediation, another old family friend calls my parents, comes back to me with the message and says, oh, no, your parents are saying, James, that until and unless you're getting help for your mental health issues, and once you are, then they will consider seeing you, right? So even though nobody has defined me as being mentally ill, right? He's still overruling all of the doctors because that narrative doesn't suit, and they've blocked all of the meetings, including hospital meetings that Dad swore he would not block, right? So I'm sorry to go on, but I could talk about it.
Can I just ask a few questions? Can you hear me?
Please, yeah.
Yeah. First off, what were you like before COVID came? And how was your family before any of you had even heard of COVID? Were you in conflict then, or was everything pretty cool?
Yeah, no, that's a very important point. I mentioned earlier, you know, I took my dad to his GP, and that was before COVID, and that was with the promised support of my brothers to try and help my parents, our parents, with their old ingrained trauma, which is horrible. Something very personal happened after I was born, and Mum's been at Dad's throat ever since, unfortunately, and became sadly an overt narcissist in a very heavy way. And so I grew up in a very challenging, and so did my brother's, environment at home. And yet I felt like I could see what was going on, and I've been trying to help them deal with that. And my brothers had promised to support me if I found the help. But when push came to shove and then COVID arrived, they've run for the hills, and from my perspective, you know.
So COVID ramped everything up.
Well, COVID really, you know, we were fine. The year before, I was talking to my brothers regularly. We'd be meeting. We would talk regularly. We would meet and have spas and things together. We had a happy Christmas together the year before. So it was very much COVID that threw things in the book. But the conversation that hasn't been allowed to happen, you know, is that COVID arrived when my parents were in New Zealand and they were staying with friends. And there were half a dozen cases, and my eldest brother's an eye surgeon, as I mentioned, and he's, if I can say it, he's deeply neurotic. He always worries about the worst case scenario, and he's admitted that. He wakes up being anxious, right? I'm not wanting to put any fear in either of them. I'm just giving my truthful opinion on what I believe to be true. And, you know, he told my parents to stay in New Zealand when there were half a dozen COVID cases in Australia, that it was too dangerous for them to come back. He just wrote and said that, overruled us all, didn't talk to my parents about it. So I rang them and asked them what they wanted. And Dad said, look, we can't stay here. I need to be home near my doctors and, you know, with my family and in my home. And so I rang around and organised to get them back. And Martin wrote a very strict protocol that they couldn't use cutlery twice, not to sit near anyone or talk to anybody, etc. And we got them home on the plane. My brother was organised to go and pick them up. I was chatting with his daughter, who I was always very close to, whom, by the way, I haven't now been able to see my nephews and nieces for 5.5 years. That I've never had an issue with, right? And she was saying, I'm sick, I don't have COVID. And I'm like, well, guys, maybe I should go and pick up Mum and Dad from the airport. No, Mum wants Nick. Nick's her favourite, you know, and he's got the nice car. And so Martin had written a very tight protocol, including Nick needing to wear a mask back from the airport. At this point, COVID had just come out. We were seeing Chinese people fall over and die when they caught it, right? I was in the supermarkets on the Facebook saying, no, everybody, we've got to be careful, you know. I was wearing a scarf over my mouth and glasses and taking photos of people in the supermarket and going, this is fucked up, right? So that was the initial thought, of course, but then that changed very quickly for me. You know, I've worked in sales and scripts and marketing and branding and people and communications and psychology and empathy, hopefully, you know, and consideration all of my life. And all that's happened to me is I've just been progressively ever more silenced. So anyway, to go on with that story, Nick picked them up from the airport, didn't wear a mask, drove them home in the car for an hour to Newport. And when I bawled him out for it, I said, you're a bloody surfer, mate. You're a bloody surfer. You could have killed them. You know, we bring them home so carefully and you sit in the car with them for an hour without wearing your mask when that was so easy. And he said, you're and hung up the phone, and he's refused to talk since. And then, of course, when we learned more about COVID and what was going on and all the information started coming out. And, you know, I've been lucky. And this is why I should share one of the reasons I kind of need to go public a little bit. I've curated, being such an internet nerd for the last 30 years, I've curated all the best of people like you guys, the most amazing commentators all over the world, left, right, and center. I don't believe in left and right or black or white or, you know, I believe in every single decision has to be made on its merits. We've got to get to the facts, and then it doesn't matter, right? Yeah. Everything individually. So anyway, long story short, Nick then wrote and said, you can't come to Christmas. We don't socialise with the unvaccinated. Threw me out, and the rest is history. And since then, you know, multiple offices have been blocked. Every effort by Dad to make them, ask them, beg them to turn up and talk has been blocked. And people are still making excuses. But now you see, because I believe, it's my opinion, their police fell for their propaganda. They were listed as witnesses, my brothers, in that conversation with my dad on the 9th of October. They weren't there. So unless they had audio in the room, why were they listed as witnesses? But the policeman didn't call me. He admitted he didn't check the 5-year history of the case or the 9 different previous event reports, or the fact that I was there at his station the night before reporting my dad's manipulation, right? Or the fact that Dad's written to them begging them to turn up 100 times, multiple emails and handwritten letters saying I'm too old to leave a broken family. And now he's been forced to give in to them. My brother even said he had to move out with me at one point and that we were weirdos. He had to move out of his home. And they've said many times if he went along with me, they wouldn't help him anymore. So it's just a cover up because they've used telling everybody that I'm crazy to cut me out of everything. It turned out that I was just sensible and following my doctor's advice. And now I'm on a 2-year good behaviour bond for finally going, oh, you motherfuckers, you've cut me out of my father's 100th birthday, right? And now my mum and dad are screaming to see me, who I've come back to nurture, and I'm not allowed to see them. And somehow it feels to me to be evil, and yet that's where we're at after 4 sittings in the court where I haven't been allowed to be heard or my documents handed up, right?
Can I just ask again? They said they're blocking you until you deal with your mental issues. Do you have a diagnosis? I mean, you don't come across as schizophrenic or anything. So do you have a mental illness that's, an official mental illness?
Well, I mean, that's the thing about being crazy, isn't it, mate? Is that you don't know you're crazy. That's what makes you haven't crazy. They haven't had you. No, I was just stealing from Jim Jeffries. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. But a psychiatrist hasn't come along and said you're manic depressive or anything like that they can use against you. Anything like this?
Quite the opposite, mate.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm just clearing it up, though.
Well, no. I mean, if I can extrapolate a little bit, I've met the most extraordinary people around the world, top psychologists, doctors of psychiatry. I've got friends that have got honours degree in maths from Oxford and write algorithms for the banks. Mid-range genius IQs. I've got 4 or 5 friends like that around the world I've been lucky enough to meet. I think I might just be like an entertaining, simple jester that can talk, Yeah. And look, I went to the psychologist a dozen times, and she met up with me again, actually, when I got back last year. And in the end, I said to her, look, what have I done? And she was one of the top psychologists in the country. She was the head of the Private Schools Association. And she begged my brothers to turn up, and she met my dad, and it strongly recommended he get his own psychologist. But in the end, I said to her, look, what have I done wrong? What could I have done differently? And she said, you haven't done anything wrong.
Wow.
You could have got the jab. You could have got the jab and lined up and like, it does seem, I mean, it's so sad, but we've been seeing this for a few years now. Families divided over whether or not they're compliant, and it's sort of a big classic that it's sad that your dad had the shot, and then 2 weeks later, such a vast coincidence as a stroke.
I'm sure Mum's Alzheimer's is also a vast coincidence since then.
How was her mental state before? That's a great question.
How was her mental state?
Was she getting Alzheimer's before the jab? Just out of interest.
Oh, look, I think mildly. Hold on a minute. My computer seems to have gone black. I don't know why.
We can see you.
Okay, I don't know why, but my computer's just gone black. Can you still see me okay? That's remarkable.
Yeah, no, it's all good. You can carry on.
Look, Mum, as I said, mental, very smart, crazy and angry and bitter because of old trauma with her and Dad after I was born, Mm-hmm. But, underneath, she's got a heart, and underneath it wasn't her fault. Hurt people. And look, it's very sad because all I've asked for is open, honest conversation about this, and that's being blocked at all and any cost because I don't think it's convenient for the state. Apparently, you don't want to talk about it. I don't think it's convenient for the police, who were misled by my brothers and have mishandled this extraordinarily. And I've asked, like the LECC, who are meant to investigate it. That got sent to the same police station to investigate themselves, that found no problem in their withholding of key evidence because they arrested me in the middle of the night.
Wow.
The night after I'd gone to report, my father's manipulation. And they turned up and said, oh, you've threatened to break your father's legs. And I said, what? Never threatened my father in my life. Well, that's what it says. Well, I said, well, let's call him. I've got the whole audio, but they refused to provide the body-worn footage of it, right? And then they haven't fact-checked what Dad said, and Dad's told lies about me to the police and then also to this independent witness, and they haven't looked at the 5-year. He admitted to not having looked at the 5-year history of the case, you know. And so this feels to me like an egregious cover-up. And right now, my mum's screaming to see me. And if I go around there to see my parents, I'll be arrested and thrown in jail because I'm on a good behaviour bond for being angry with my brother. Now, I will just say that the court said in the police charges were about me harassing my dad, one of them on WhatsApp, right? And they said that he hadn't replied to me in this period of text. And that's what they told the court in the facts sheet, that he hadn't replied to me. Well, in fact, during that period, he'd replied more than 60 times, including a beautiful voicemail for my birthday, right? So it seemed to me that the police were set up by my brothers. This is what it seems to me. Now, it's an ongoing case. I have to be careful with my allegations, right? But I'm speaking the truth as far as I'm aware of it. And they've just fallen for it, hook, line and sinker.
Can I ask?
Haven't bothered to check, you know?
Can I ask, James, do you think that when it comes to the police, there is this bias now towards those who didn't take the jab in the first place? Everyone thinks no one cares anymore, but they do. Do you think this bias, so basically you've got your brother and you're unjabbed, they're jabbed, their voice carries more weight, they're seen by the state as more responsible? I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying this is the side we built, because when you're saying no conversation, there are no conversations. There's hardly any conversations between the two communities. You know, we just get called names. You know,
guys, it's very sad because what we're watching, of course, everyone's talked about this, mate. We're watching this kind of whole communal. What is the right word for it? Delusion, right? It's cognitive dissonance at this point, or it's just plain ignorance and choosing to be because the reality is just too hard to accept. This is why I believe I haven't been allowed to speak for the last 5 years. There's lots of conversations that have not been allowed to be had, right? And this is the point, is that for me, it's very, very clear. And I know for you guys, it is as well. It's irrefutable, you know, that those jabs were at best useless and at worst dangerous. Yeah. It's irrefutable that there were better options for us used at the time that were silenced. I was trying to get with a nurse friend who lost her job for not getting the jab. We ordered from India Mart some packs they were giving out in Uttar Pradesh that I knew about from just having a look around what was going online, checking out the companies that were involved, checking out if they had a liability, checking out who, you know, what the different data that was coming out of different places, and started to ask questions, right? And we tried to order from India Mart these packets that included ivermectin and zinc and vitamin C that they gave to everybody in their community, right? And it knocked COVID on the head. But the post office rang us and said, oh, no, you can't do that. Ivermectin's illegal now in Australia, you know, unless it's prescribed for pets. So I ended up having to take dog ivermectin, you know, enough of them to get a human dose. But I was pretty much better overnight. In 48 hours, funnily enough, after tobacco, which it has nicotine in it, which turned out to be really useful as well. Did you realize that less smokers got COVID than others, right? There's so much hidden truth about this stuff. As I said, I could talk all night about it, so I don't want to bore you with it, and I'm sure you know it all as well. But to think, you know, I'll just say one thing. To think that Anthony Fauci can be given a auto pen, what do we call it? You know, a get out of jail card,
amnesty,
right? Even though there are no charges against him, even though we can then see the Epstein files come out that have the same names involved, right? What percentage of our community is still just hiding from this conversation? And I just want to sit and resolve with my family. I'm desperate to see my parents. At the moment, it looks like I'm never going to see them again, right?
Can I suggest something else to you that it's just a theory?
Yeah.
But I think in 1984, you had to do 2 + 2 equaled whatever the government tells you it equals. That was the point in 1984. If you wanted to remain free, 2 + 2 = 4. It's a fact. Do you think now that there's a lot of people who have accepted that the government has taken over reality and truth? And so even though you have the truth, 2 + 2 equals, I'm the son of these two parents, and before they die, I should be allowed to see them. That is a God-honest truth. But the government is going, no, he did not comply, so he doesn't have the same rights as us. And that's why they don't have the conversation. They know it's wrong. What you're dealing with is the banality of evil defended by fearful people who are frightened of the government, frightened of losing their job, their position, and they're willing to sacrifice even their brothers, people that came out of the same womb. They're willing to sacrifice them to maintain the illusion of safety.
That's so beautifully spoken, man. Thank you for summarizing all of that.
I wish it wasn't. It makes me want to cry.
Oh, it's making me cry, man.
Here, as Australians, we're brothers. How the fuck did we get here? That's what I want to say.
How did we get here? My dad's done everything for this country. I've asked every office in the land to help. I don't know what more I could have done, right? I've gone to every office in the land. I've got the best tech. I'm using APIs and Claude to perfect every note and every email. And guess what? Most of them are just, I've got the people coming back from the Elderly Abuse Board and the General Counsel of the nursing home making excuses going, oh, your dad, he's very independent. I'm like, he's just told us he has no voice, right? Oh, but there's reasons why he could have said this stuff. It's like, guys, this has been going on for 5.5 years. We have a pattern. We have a motive. We have all of the evidence. The conversation's not been allowed. This is all just the expansion of an uncomfortable set of facts and truths that people are reluctant to address. And I think if just in response to your question there, mate, it's like, what's it done to the communal consciousness? Yeah. Are there distinctly two groups? I think they're merging. I understood there's more than 50% of Americans now that believe that those injections have caused serious damage or death, right?
A large number of deaths. James, I wonder whether your AVO is it's because, they really just don't want to face what happened during COVID. And, when, you're saying your motivation was to protect your parents, provide them with the best advice that you had. Obviously, your eye doctor brother is heavily indoctrinated in the government and the propaganda belief system, and they just don't want to look at it. And the words coming out of your mouth are so threatening to them that they've used what you call the word crime. Uttering an exasperating sentence and treating it like you're some sort of violent offender that beats up his 100-year-old dad, which is not the case. It sounds like you've got very complex family dynamics that probably pre-existed, but because not everyone, but a lot of families have moved past it, But yours clearly hasn't, and in fact has upped the ante, by getting all these AVOs and what have you.
You're absolutely right. Spot on. I mean, check this out. I come from the heart of North Shore conservatism, right? Knox Grammar School, Warunga, St Ives, all of that. Main part in the school musical, incredible opportunities, We were told that we were the luckiest kids in the world. It was so elitist, but it was wrong for me in my soul. I loved the people. I wanted to talk to everybody and treat everybody the same. It just didn't feel human to. What happened to all of that? They are the heart blood, my brothers, and that community desperately trying to hold on, like I think less than 10% now, to the belief that was all legit and that the injections were good We can't call them vaccines. We have to call them injections. I don't know why everybody keeps referring to them as vaccines, right?
They're gene therapies.
What percent is it that are holding on to the clinging on to saying, oh, it saved millions of lives, right? And I think Tucker Carlson laughed about that recently when an Australian journalist suggested that. And he said something about him being the last man in Japan or something, right? It's
On the island.
Yeah. So you look, I think when it comes to action, and this is what's most important for me, obviously, at this time, I'm hoping the community will help me to see my parents urgently. My mum's rung me last night. She said she's got no will to live. She finds the whole thing disgusting. And she says, Dad, will you talk to your son? Do you want to see your son? He's like, and he's silent and he puts his head in his hands because he doesn't want to deal with it. He's told he'll get in trouble. He says, there's a court order. There's a court order. He's told he's not allowed to call me when in fact, he's supposed to have been told, and the General Counsel of the nursing home has told me that they are meant to support my parents if they want to contact me, not that they should feel afraid to. And yet that's what's going on because it suits that side of the story. And whenever Dad or anyone else says the other side of the story, it's just ignored or not permitted. Yeah. Right? And so I'm just being scapegoated, and it's absolutely textbook. What I think is interesting, it's so relevant at the moment. It's related to elder abuse and manipulation. It's related to COVID misinformation and propaganda, but it's also related to this word crime nonsense. Because what have they got me on for in the end? Is that the judge determined that I had intent to beat up my brothers after I'd said, you motherfuckers, you've thrown me out of my dad's 100th birthday. I've come back for, especially from overseas. Right, but they're not. No one's asked me. If you want to talk about who gets frightened, it's the victim. My dad and I are the frightened ones in this case. My dad and I are the abused ones in this case, right? And I'm trying to speak for him. His voice has been silenced. He's told us so, and yet they're silencing mine because it's more convenient. You know.
There's also a pressure, though. I have to say. We're noticing this everywhere. You go into any government office, even post offices, they have huge things on the wall. If you get angry, basically there's any anger or any aim towards the staff, bang, 100% zero tolerance. And so you'd be on the phone call to say, I don't know, some bureaucratic office, and you're there for ages, and it keeps coming back. Just to let you know, for the safety of our staff, we have 100% zero against tolerance against any aggression, and they just make you wait and you wait and you wait, and finally you get on, you wait, you feel like, for fuck's sake, just answer the phone. That's it, gone. AVI on this thing. It's almost like they want everyone to just be this placid NPC, and the whole culture is moving that way. Well, naturally, if my father was, my father's 88, if my father was 100 years old, and I found out that they had the birthday party without me, I would lose my shit.
Right.
Because you don't get two of those. It's not like, we'll have the 101st birthday party.
No.
This is, someone lives to 100 years old and they're your father. I had to fight. How you not get angry about that.
I had to fight to get him a 90th birthday. I took him around the world. I took him to see his brother twice before his brother died. I moved both of his sisters out of care. And then, she was dementiaed. And after 2 months of it, I remember my auntie, when I left her there, she said, why are you leaving me here? And she burst out in tears. Why didn't you tell me about this before? And I said, darling, I've been moving here for 2 months. You just don't remember. So that's about as much thanks as I've had and my dad's had for his last 100 years of service to this country. This state has let him down. This country's let him down. I've been to every office in the country, up to the Governor General, to the ministers, to the hospitals, right? To the doctor, to the psychologist, to the Elderly Abuse Board. They've all recommended the same thing, mediation, right? No doctor has ever found me to be anything other than sound of mind and body. I look after artists and VIPs at the biggest events in the world, Yeah. It's like, it's just a massive cover-up from my perspective. And here's the biggest risk, you guys, and this is why I wanted to talk with you. I could get arrested at any time. They could determine it a breach of my AVO for having answered the phone to my desperate mother last night. Yeah. Because technically it is. Yeah. Right? For doing anything that might frighten my brothers, right? Even if that's telling the truth, that's technically legally I'm breaking and they could send me to jail for 5 years. right? So
Can
might be the last time you hear from me.
2 secs, James. I interviewed a guy. I think his town was in Gymea. He'd rented this old theater, and he was from Nimbin. You know, the dreadlocks, the whole shagalia. And they'd arrested him coming out of Nimbin, and lo and behold, they found a bit of dope in his car, and he ended up being thrown into the clink for I think it was 2 months or 3 months. He got out in a month anyway. He said it was a new prison, and 60% of the inmates, of the men, were there on ABO orders. And what they'd done, he said, most of the crimes were this. They'd been told they can't contact their ex-partner or their kids. And what would happen is the ex-partner or the kids had sent them a text and they'd replied.
Yeah.
And once they replied, straight in the clink. No discussion, no anything, straight in. And there they are for a year or 2 years, 6 months, whatever. This is actually happening in our country constantly. And
we've got some bigger questions on this, don't we?
But it's sort of a demonization of men. Now, I'm sorry, but you have every right to lose a bit of steam if they did that at a 100th birthday party. No matter if you did have a mental illness, no matter where you were, if they did that, you have a right to lose your shit. We're blokes. This is how we get on. We don't store stuff up. We don't this. The reason there's a huge suicide epidemic with mature males in the country is they're not allowed to be their natural selves. And we don't go around beating everyone up, but we do lose our shit now and again. This is how we vent. And you can't, for this one little time you lose your shit over something like that, which is justifiable, they don't let you see your parents until they die. I mean, my God.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's going on.
That's insane. It'd be different if you went around and punched on and you punched them up and go, Dad, have 100 candles with my fist. Then I'd understand. But you just, you actually, it's to me, it's just you being a human being. You would get frustrated for that.
It's worse. It's worse than that, mate. Unfortunately, if you look at the bigger picture, we have to ask some questions. What you said is happening in Australia is happening intentionally all over the world. Right. Yeah. And it's, in my opinion, it's an organized decline in line with an agenda, sustainable goals and World Economic Forum and reducing our movement and our travel. And this war's quite convenient for that, isn't it? They've admitted to spraying our skies and
non-player characters as men.
James, if your brothers were watching this, what would you say to the idea that, look, you just want to go be with family, you're not going to beat anyone up, you never have, you're not going to start, you're not going to even talk about COVID or anything, you just want to have a cup of tea, and sit with them and ask them about their lives. Would you be agreeable to that? You don't have to be in, and a lot of people in this situation, sometimes we just don't talk about certain things, just so that we can, I've been in, over the last few years with people who have totally different views, and sometimes a little bit slips out, and I know they seem to be terrified that even a small comment might slip out that might question their worldview. But would you be agreeable to that? Like if your brothers were listening, just non-evangelical. Would you be agreeable to that?
Absolutely. I don't think it's their fault. I'm not trying to apportion blame. I think it's an incredibly sad situation. I think they've been misled. I think a lot of people have been misled. And I think it's extremely hard for a lot of people to accept that we've all been misled, particularly people that are built into that society. So in terms of what I would say to my brothers is that it's not their fault. And even if they don't want to talk to me and they're afraid to sit and talk, that's fine. But that shouldn't stop me nurturing my parents, right? That's the madness about it. And if they don't want to talk, I can't make them. Not forcing them to, right? But don't block my parents because of your fears of a conversation, which everybody's asked for a million times,
Maybe they could wheel you in like Hannibal Lecter. Remember when he came in, he was strapped up with the thing and you could go here. Hi, Dad.
I think they'd only do it if I had socks in my mouth, mate.
Yeah. Just want to say
goodbye. They probably want one of those shock collars, you know, that they have for dogs around there. Moment you say COVID or vaccine.
It's unbelievable. The most frightening thing, of course, you guys, and I know I keep repeating it, but I think it's the thing that the community needs to understand, is that if people like me that literally just try and be kind and love people and ask questions and want to build community and care and think that we're all brothers and sisters that should choose love over fear, right? And have never been in a fight and wants to help everyone. If people like me are being silenced on the threat of being locked up, right, for wanting to see my parents, and for what precisely? Just going, you motherfuckers, you know, and agreeing with my dad that I felt like beating him up at the time, right? They've called me much worse. This is our normal vernacular in our family anyway, right? But the police were just looking for it. They're looking for criminals and convictions. It's like they're targeted on it. They're not looking for justice. The whole system hasn't worked, and I've got the full evidence of it from beginning to end, and it's extraordinary. Yeah. It's absolutely extraordinary because I've taken in witness emails from my dad and evidence, and they've refused to look at it, right? I begged to be interrogated. They won't do it. They investigate themselves and find no problem after withholding evidence. Now, can I go to jail for telling these truths? You know, when the magistrate, for example, won't let me speak, and when I say, look, my mum was calling me 6 or 7 times, you can't expand the AVO to her, right? Can I show you the call logs? He says, that's what you say, and expands the AVO to my mum.
Oh, my God.
Right? Guys, I've been to court 4 times. I haven't really been allowed to speak. I haven't been allowed to hand up my paperwork. Do you want to know what makes it even more egregious? I finally get the legal aid lawyer, right? The first one, I go in there on an AVO variation a few months ago, and I say, look, I've got an audio with my mother of the last time that I spoke with her, and she finds this whole situation disgusting and wants to help me. Right. And then 5 days later, the court was told that she didn't want to see me. Will you listen to the audio, please, of the last time I was allowed to see her? And he goes, no, that was before the court was told that she didn't want to see you, James. So it's irrelevant. Right. So that was a waste of time. And then I got a different legal aid lawyer. And this time I went with this independent family friend's JP signed statement and my mum's audio and her call registers and about another 100 documents. 99% filling Claude project and sweating over it for months, pushing AI to the limits. And I have what they consider a bulletproof case kind of times 10, because I've got evidence of all of this for the last 6 years, perfectly organized, and the transcripts and the legal analysis and the relevant laws all completely set up in the legal pack, handed to my legal aid lawyer, who promises to represent me and then refuses to hand up my evidence.
Wow.
Because why? Well, because the police had said my dad hadn't responded to my messages, and he'd responded more than 60 times. He'd sent me a beautiful voice note on my birthday towards the end of that session. So that means strictly they've perjured the court, which I said to the court, which he didn't respond to. The court didn't respond to. I said, well, look, here's my dad begging my brothers to turn up, you know, in writing and handwriting and in emails over the years. And when I came back in October, he was still calling new mediators. He told me he'd been given a flyer, still trying to resolve it before his actual birthday on the 24th of October. And for 5-10 minutes of being completely exasperated and outraged, right? Never threatening my parents, never having ever threatened my parents, trying to help them all. I've not been able to see them in their dying months. And this is not what anyone wants. It's not healthy for anybody. It's certainly not healthy for my brothers, right? I mean, can you imagine the shame?
Yeah.
And all they're doing is they're still going, we're just replacing Dad's words with, he's mentally ill. He needs to get help. And then once he shows and self-diagnoses as mentally ill, then we'll consider seeing him. right? So just ignore all the doctors. And look, you asked earlier, mate, how it was related previously. I mentioned I had a autoimmune condition, right? I'd had psoriasis for 30 years, and it was really bad. It was all over me and horrible.
Yeah.
And I went on all of the medical drugs. I was completely in the system at that time, you know. And finally, these injections that got rid of, which were biologics and dangerous, that play around in your immune stream, ran out on me when I was in the middle of nowhere in the north of Brazil, because I like to go to the middle of nowhere. And I rang the company and they said, yeah, we can get you some more injections, even to your local pharmacy. I was like, how much? They were like $5,500.
Wow.
And so I had to crawl my ass home to Sydney, went online like all people psoriatics do, right, to see what the latest treatments and tricks are. And there was this incredible biotech cream from India with 1,000 different phytochemicals in it from different plants that all of these ex-Glaxo scientists were putting together. And they were inventing all of these different cures for these different things. And it was being sold by this Ayurvedic doctor up in Bondi Junction. So when I got back, I went up to see him and I showed him my psoriasis. I said, I want to get some of this cream for my psoriasis. He said, I can help you with that. I said, I've heard that 1,000,000 times. I've been to every dermatologist in the land. Do you know what I mean? I've done everything. And he said, let me have a look at your tongue. And he took a photo of my tongue. He looked at different parts of my tongue and he went, look, there's your kidney and there's your liver and there's your gallbladder, right? You need to do a liver and gallbladder cleanse over the weekend and then an alkaline diet for the next 12 weeks. Psoriasis and skin disease is an expression of inflammation, obviously, right? It shows us we've got an inflamed system. So what do we need to do? We need to clear out the pipes. And man, I shat out, you know, multiple multicolored balls, man, from that olive oil and grapefruit juice in particular cleanse that I did over that weekend, but then watched my psoriasis for the first time in my life melt off me naturally, meaning that I'm no longer a customer of the pharmaceutical industry, which, by the way, those drugs, I think, for every person with psoriasis were costing like $70,000 or $80,000 per year per person for everyone with psoriasis, right? And I had to go through calling the GP, booking the appointment, going to the GP, getting the referral to the skin specialist, going there. He calls his insurance guy, his drug guys. They bring that around in a box and it's in the cold because they've got to keep it in the fridge. $80,000 a year to every taxpayer, because if we told them it was related to inflammation and how to deal with inflammation, they'd lose a lot of business. I mean, how is it that you could be a dermatologist with 10 or 12 years of training, and when you go to them for 20 years and you say, you sure this isn't diet related? You know, maybe I'm allergic to milk or something, or sugar. No, it's hereditary. We're going to help you. We're going to help you manage it for the rest of your life. So you see what happened, of course, is that I cleared my psoriasis.
Business plan.
Sorry, mate. And I went to my brother, the eye surgeon. I went, look, I've cleared my psoriasis. And he went, how'd you do that? And I told him, and he went, bullshit. You must have done something else. And I'm like, mate, I literally did a whole protocol, just cleansing my system and doing an alkaline diet. It's the only thing that's changed, right? Oh, and I got that amazing cream, by the way, which was better than any of the cortisone creams. You know, and all of those medicines, they put pressure on our organs, man. They can make it harder for us and give us cancer later. You know, they put a lot of pressure on our system. And we're not dealing, of course, with the root cause. And this is the problem. If doctors are only studying nutrition for a week in 10 years, then how is it expected they're going to have the best solutions for their individual patients and a full spectrum understanding?
I don't think it was a full week, James.
Really?
Yeah, you've got to look. It's a business plan, though. I mean, look what you said, and I'll show you another corporation that did it. Remember Peebo when we were growing up? Knox Flies Dead. I used to.
He was our next door neighbour, Ross Higgins.
No, wait, you spray flies, and I used to, when we were growing up, they'd spray the house full of these chemicals, and all the flies would go, bzz, and they'd spin around and they'd die. But half an hour later, you'd hear them go, bzz, bzz, and they're off. Because there's no business in killing them. You want the woman in the suburbia going, oh, they're back. They keep getting in somehow, and she's just spraying. And if she gets sick from this stuff, well, she's got to get medicine. Who's she get it from? Big Pharma. I I mean, this is the business model. There's no good business in getting you healthy. If you've got psoriasis and you're spending all this money for ages, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. We're in a business. We are the cows, the cash cows that they just keep, the golden geese. That's what we are. They want us they vaccinate us as soon as you come out of the womb, jab, if it affects you, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. They vaccinate you like crazy, 72, all these ailments. Oh, it's terrible. Why is it happening? Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Now they own all the fucking nursing homes. They know not only the nursing homes, but they own the funeral parlors. BlackRock's investing in funeral parlors. So when you go there, look, he finally died of all these things that we gave him, and let's bury him. Here's the fee for burying him. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. It's a business model.
Here's my concern, though.
Business in keeping you. I'm just theorizing. But there's no business in keeping you healthy.
But here's the thing we've got to.
Yeah.
Here's the thing we've got to address, though, urgently, right? It's something you said earlier, and I think it might be the most important thing. If people are being locked up for speaking or being reasonable, right? If I'm on the threat of being locked up for seeing my mother who's screaming to see me and my dad who's being silenced and has told us so and could die any day, and I get locked up if I go around and see them, right? If we're not allowed to speak and people are scared to say anything, and if Julian Assange wasn't the best kind of demonstration that the masks are off and have been for years, right? Our politicians are not doing what they said they were going to do when they get into power, right? And look, as soon as Pauline Hanson from One Nation comes out and says, we're going to reject the World Economic Forum policies, her vote goes up by like 20% overnight, right? Mm. So it seems to me, and just in answering your earlier question, mate, is that are people aware of what's going on? Are you treated differently if you are of different mind? Well, imagine that information about inflammation, the relationship between inflammation and disease. And as this Ayurvedic doctor said to me, he said, if people understood that relationship, it would reduce GP visits by something like 80%.
Yeah. And big pharma companies have economies bigger than, say, Poland or Sweden. They have to maintain it, which means they need sick people. I mean, and think of all the children that died of SIDS. When they first COVID came, they said, we've got SADS now, sudden adult death syndrome. But they got rid of that because everyone's SADS. You mean so SIDS was vaccine related? What about all those men, those young fathers who came in to find their baby blue because the vaccine had done it, got them up, it was like shaking, please be alive. And then they get shaking baby syndrome, which has been proven to be bullshit. And they go to jail. Why do they go to jail? To protect big pharma. Why can't you see your parents? Because ultimately, go deep down into the guts of all this. It's protecting business, and that's why we struggle again. That's why you're not allowed to ask questions. You got to buy a car. How many miles has it done? Has it been in an accident?
Yeah. Don't do your own research now.
Yeah, but here's his vaccine. What's in it?
Yeah,
you an anti-vaxxer? Oh no, just jab it in me. You're not allowed to ask fucking questions. If you can't ask questions, then the person who you're not allowed to have questions for, that's the problem.
Exactly, mate. And that's exactly what I've been saying. I so appreciate, again, you putting it into those words, because at the end of the day, what's happening now is 1984, right? I think about how before the wars, it's often the case where the intellectuals are kind of rounded up and silenced, Yeah. You talk about the kind of the emancipication or whatever of men in society. If we're afraid to speak up, we're gone. If we are silenced and isolated, if our ability to move around and talk with each other, if festivals and events that I've been involved in, which I believe are the most important cultural device in history, right, and in our language, this is where we come together really in a non-competitive environment to play and learn and meet each other and collaborate, right, and express our art. And this is what we need. We need decisions, as Russell Brand says, coming from the ground up, from the bottom up, not from the top down. Yeah. And my fear is that whilst we covet their dollar, we're gone, right? Because you can travel all over the world as much as you want. You might see a couple of thousand different religions, right? But the real religion is money. And everybody's chasing a dollar that they can manipulate, they can control, they can print. right? And I'm confused. This is why I couldn't buy into it, because quite simply, what are we paying tax for if they can print it and print it beyond what we can afford to pay back, right? It's an absurdity. And so it seems to me this great reset, this fourth industrial, whatever they call it, right, for 2030, is it not, and it's a question, is it not that they want to reset all of that debt, right, that they want to start the whole thing again under one umbrella, that they can control all of it and get everybody's ID onto the system, which makes perfect sense technologically, right? The problem is that whenever you give humans power like that, they will exploit it every time, right?
Yeah.
So where are the checks and balances on that? And combine that with the AI that I'm now able to use. We can have our computers now working for us overnight as assistants, right? We can set that up now. Yeah. And you can just talk to your phone and say, can you just do this job for me? It knows everything about you. You can go into your website and open your website and write you a blog and make you a video and optimize the whole thing and send it out across all of the networks, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, things are changing so fast, it's unbelievable. But the long and the short to this story is, guys, this should be front page news as far as I'm concerned. 100-year-old Aussie war vet not allowed to see his son, basically because it's politically inconvenient, right? And even when he tells us he's being silenced, and my mum's calling me saying she hates it and she finds it disgusting, and what have I ever done wrong? And that, she says to me, apparently you said some bad things about Martin and Nick. And I'm like, and what's that got to do with seeing you and Dad, right? Exactly. And yet that is how the law has done it, and that's how they've interpreted it. And the funny thing is the police didn't have a problem with a single message that I sent to my dad. They just said that he hadn't responded enough. He's 98 years old. I'd set up the WhatsApp for him. I'm traveling around the world sending him photos. I'm not expecting him to reply. He can hardly use the bloody thing, right? Yeah, but then he's still able to use me voice note. Sorry, mate, go on.
No, he's 98. I hate to do this. I've got to go because I've got another big interview coming up in about...
No worries.
Let's wrap it up. So right now, basically, all you want is an act of mercy. My parents are going to die soon. I'm their son. I just want to see my parents. I'm not going to beat them up. I'm not going to beat my family up. I just want to see my parents. Because it's a crime against humanity itself not to allow you to do that. And to your brothers... I don't know their side of the story, maybe, who knows, but you all came out of the same woman. You're all formed in the same womb. This is sacred. This goes above law. This is human stuff. And this is there has to be some sort of bridge of love built from common sense that can see an empathy that says, please just let me say goodbye in person to my parents.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking.
Heartbreaking, mate. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly. I appreciate it.
Now there's a museum in town full of memories of you. Seems the council here have nothing better to do. They change room by room as the outer you grew. When you switch off the lights, the inner you still glows. There's a harbor in my heart where you used to fix your sails. There was no berthing fee to pay, and there were no documents to sign. If the storms grow too long, why not set sail for me? Otherwise, at least know that there's a part of you here, alive and so full of fire that I'm wondering if it's you that's powering all of these lights. That I'm wondering if it could be you who is powering all these street lights. any documents to sign.